Have you ever sat at a crowded dinner table, surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses, knowing that in exactly 5 minutes you are going to absolutely ruin someone's life? That is exactly where I found myself on a chilly Saturday evening in November. I was sitting across from my husband of 5 years, David. He was smiling. He was holding my hand under the table, rubbing his thumb over my wedding ring. To everyone else in the room, his parents, his grandparents, his siblings, we were the perfect couple. We were the gold standard of love. But as I looked at his handsome face, I didn't feel love. I felt nothing but a cold, heavy silence in my chest. Because hidden inside my designer handbag, resting against my chair, were 25 manila envelopes, one for every adult sitting at this table. And inside those envelopes was the undeniable, heartbreaking truth about the man they all worshipped. Before I tell you what was in those envelopes, and the absolute chaos that followed when they were opened, you need to understand how we got here. You need to understand how a woman who once loved a man with her entire soul turns into someone who can calmly plot his total and complete downfall. This isn't just a story about a man who couldn't stay faithful. This is a story about a family of enablers, a secret double life, and the exact moment I stopped crying and started planning. To understand my husband, David, you have to understand his family. The Harrison family was a big deal in our town. His father was a retired judge, his mother ran every charity board, and David was their golden boy. He was a successful architect, charismatic, generous, and charming. When David and I got married, his family made it very clear how they felt. They liked me, sure, but there was always an unspoken rule. I was lucky to have him. His mother would say things like, David could have had anyone, but he chose your sweet, simple heart. I never minded it, I really didn't, because for the first 4 years of our marriage, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. He bought me flowers on random Tuesdays. He left little sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. He made me feel seen, safe, and deeply loved. But looking back, I realize now that perfection is the best place to hide a lie. When a man is too perfect, nobody ever thinks to check his pockets. Nobody ever thinks to ask where he really goes when he says he's working late. The first shift happened right around our 5th anniversary. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was like a slow leak in a tire. You don't notice it until you're completely stranded on the side of the road. First, it was his phone. For 4 years, we knew each other's passcodes. It was never an issue. But one day, I went to order food on his phone because mine was charging and the passcode had changed. When I asked him about it, he didn't get angry. He laughed it off. He said his company forced a security update on all employee devices. It sounded perfectly reasonable. Then it was the late nights. David said he was managing a massive new building project. He would come home at 11 p.m., exhausted, smelling like expensive coffee and cold wind. I felt so bad for him. I even started packing him extra dinners in Tupperware so he wouldn't go hungry at the office. I was such a good, trusting wife, and he was playing me for a fool. The feeling of being betrayed doesn't usually start with proof. It starts with a feeling in your gut, a quiet voice whispering that something is wrong. I tried to ignore that voice. Whenever I asked David if everything was okay, he would pull me into a hug, kiss my forehead, and tell me I was overthinking. You worry too much, my love, he would say. He was the master of making me feel like my anxiety was the problem. But then the undeniable crack in his perfect mask appeared. I was doing the laundry one Sunday morning. David was out playing golf with his father. As I was emptying the pockets of his dry cleaning bag, a small, crumpled piece of paper fell onto the floor. It was a receipt from a very high-end jewelry store downtown. My heart did a little flutter. Our anniversary was coming up. I smiled, thinking I had just ruined my own surprise. I looked at the receipt, expecting to see a necklace or maybe earrings. Instead, I saw the item description: custom diamond tennis bracelet, $4,500. But that wasn't the detail that made my stomach drop. It was the date on the receipt. The purchase was made 3 months ago. 3 months ago, for my birthday, David got me a beautiful designer watch. He didn't give me a diamond tennis bracelet, so who did he buy it for? I sat on the laundry room floor, staring at the paper. My hands started to shake. I told myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe it was a gift for his mother. No, her birthday was in spring. Maybe a client, but $4,500 was too much for a client gift. That night when he came home, I didn't say a word. I watched him. I watched the way he smiled at me, the way he calmly asked about my day. I realized in that terrifying moment that I didn't know the man sitting across from me. I had to know the truth, and I knew asking him would only give him a chance to lie. I had to find the proof myself. Getting into a locked phone is impossible if you don't know the code, but getting into an iPad that is linked to the same cloud account, that's a different story. David had an old iPad he kept in his home office. He rarely used it anymore, but I knew it was still connected to his main account. One night, while he was fast asleep, I crept downstairs into his office. The house was completely silent. Only the sound of my heart thumping against my ribs echoed in my ears. I turned on the iPad. It didn't ask for a new passcode, it used the old one. I tapped on his messages. At first, it was just work emails, texts from his mom, group chats with his friends. I felt a wave of guilt. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was ruining my own marriage with my paranoia. But then I saw a text thread from an unsaved number. No name, just a little moon emoji. I opened it, and in one single second, my entire world shattered into a million pieces. I miss you. The bracelet looks perfect with this dress. Wish you were here instead of with her. I scrolled up and I kept scrolling, months and months of messages, pictures, hotel bookings, inside jokes. They were calling each other husband and wife. She was a 24-year-old interior designer who worked at his firm. He wasn't just having a weekend fling, he was living a complete second life with her. Tears streamed down my face, blinding me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Everything we had built, every memory, every promise, it was all fake. But the worst part wasn't the messages between David and this girl. The worst part was a message I found a few minutes later in a completely different chat thread. It was a message between David and his younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was my best friend. We shopped together. We spent every holiday together. I trusted her like blood. I opened their chats. Chloe, is Sarah coming to the firm's gala? David, no, I told her it was clients only, taking Mia instead. Chloe, okay, just make sure you don't end up in any of the background photos this time. Sarah is starting to ask questions. My own sister-in-law, she knew. She didn't just know, she was helping him hide it. She looked me in the eyes every Sunday at family dinner, smiled at me, called me her sister, all while covering up my husband's double life. I didn't scream, I didn't wake him up. The sadness completely vanished, evaporating into the cold air of the office. What replaced it was something much darker, much stronger. It was pure, blinding clarity. When a woman finds out she has been betrayed, the betrayer expects tears. They expect screaming, throwing clothes out the window, and dramatic arguments. But I didn't give David the satisfaction of my tears. He didn't deserve my grief. Instead, I became a ghost in my own marriage. For the next 3 weeks, I played the role of the loving wife perfectly. I cooked his favorite meals. I smiled when he kissed me goodbye. I even went to coffee with Chloe, listening to her talk about her dating life, smiling warmly while mentally erasing her from my existence. Behind the scenes, I was working. I took screenshots of everything. Every text, every photo, every hotel receipt, every message between David and Chloe. I forwarded all the financial documents to my private email. I quietly hired a brilliant lawyer who helped me separate my finances and protect my assets. By the time I was done, I had a mountain of evidence, but how was I going to reveal it? I could just hand him divorce papers, but that was too quiet. David's entire life was built on his reputation. His family's pride was built on looking perfect to the outside world. If I just left quietly, he would spin the story. He would tell everyone we just grew apart, or worse, he would blame me. He would keep his golden boy image. I couldn't let that happen. The truth needed to be loud, it needed to be undeniable. And as luck would have it, his parents' 40th wedding anniversary dinner was exactly 1 week away. It was going to be an intimate gathering. Just the immediate family, his parents, his grandparents, his siblings, and me. I spent a whole afternoon at a local print shop. I printed 25 copies of the most damaging screenshots, the receipt for the bracelet, the messages proving his affair, and right at the very top, the messages proving Chloe knew everything. I placed these neatly into high-quality manila envelopes. I sealed them with elegant gold stickers, making them look like special anniversary favors. When the night of the dinner finally arrived, I put on my best dress. I did my hair and makeup flawlessly. I looked in the mirror and promised the woman looking back at me that tonight she would get her freedom. Which brings us back to the crowded dinner table. We were at a private dining room in the city's most exclusive restaurant. The mood was joyous. David's father had just finished giving a beautiful speech about loyalty, commitment, and the sanctity of marriage. It was almost too ironic. David squeezed my hand under the table. "You okay?" he whispered, noticing my silence. "Never better," I whispered back, offering a perfectly hollow smile. Dessert was served, the waiters cleared the main plates. This was my moment. I stood up, tapping my spoon against my crystal water glass. Clink, clink, clink. The room fell completely silent. All eyes turned to me. David looked up, beaming with pride, fully expecting me to give a touching speech about his parents' legendary romance. I have a few words I'd like to share, I began, my voice steady, carrying clearly across the room. 40 years of marriage is an incredible milestone. It requires honesty, trust, and above all, respect, qualities that this family prides itself on. I reached down to the floor, grabbing the stack of envelopes. I brought a little something to commemorate tonight, something to celebrate the truth of what family really means. I walked around the table. I handed an envelope to his mother, to his father, to his grandparents, to his brother, and finally I stopped behind Chloe's chair and handed her one. Go ahead, I said gently, open them. David was looking at me, slightly confused but still smiling. He didn't have an envelope. The sound of tearing paper filled the room. His mother pulled out the stack of papers. She put on her reading glasses. I watched the exact second her world collapsed. Her polite smile dropped. Her face drained of all color, turning pale as a ghost. What is this? She whispered, her hands trembling as she looked at a printed photo of David kissing his assistant in a hotel lobby. His father slammed the papers onto the table. David, what the hell is the meaning of this? David snatched the papers from his mother's hand. I watched his eyes scan the page. The arrogant, charming golden boy vanished in an instant. He looked like a deer caught in the headlights of a massive truck. He looked up at me, panic washing over his face. Sarah, he stammered, completely speechless. Before he could form a lie, his mother gasped again. She had reached the second page, the messages between David and Chloe. Chloe, his mother practically shrieked, turning to her daughter, you helped him hide this from Sarah. The entire table erupted. His grandfather was shaking his head in disgust. His father was shouting at David. Chloe burst into loud, dramatic tears, trying to explain herself, but the evidence was right there in black and white. There was nowhere to hide. The pristine, perfect Harrison family was completely falling apart right before my eyes. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just stood there watching the fire I had set burn everything to the ground. I leaned down close to David's ear. He was completely frozen in shock. My lawyer will contact you on Monday, I whispered. Don't ever try to contact me again. I turned around, picked up my coat, and walked out of the private dining room. I didn't look back. The sounds of their arguing faded as I walked through the restaurant lobby, pushed the heavy glass doors open, and stepped out into the cool night air. I took a deep breath. It was the first time I felt like I could truly breathe in 5 years. The fallout was spectacular. I never went back to our house. I stayed in a hotel, and my lawyer handled every single interaction with David. Because his family was so obsessed with their public image, his parents were absolutely humiliated by what he had done. His father, a man of strict principles, was so disgusted by David's actions and Chloe's complicity that he temporarily cut them both off from the family trust. David's reputation in his architecture firm took a massive hit, especially when it came out that he was sleeping with a junior employee. He was asked to step down from his leadership role to avoid a corporate scandal. He tried to call me, he tried to send flowers. He even wrote a 10-page letter begging for forgiveness, blaming stress, saying it meant nothing. But it was too late. You cannot unbreak a glass once it's been smashed into pieces. The divorce was finalized quickly. He didn't fight me on anything, he couldn't afford to. I walked away with exactly what I deserved, and more importantly, I walked away with my dignity intact. Looking back, the easiest thing to do would have been to scream at him the night I found those messages, to let my emotions control me. But betrayal teaches you a very hard, very necessary lesson. When someone breaks your heart, they expect you to fall apart. They rely on your weakness to get away with their lies, but your reaction is your power. Silence is terrifying to a liar, and the truth, no matter how hard you try to hide it, will always find its way into the light. David thought he was the smartest person in the room. He thought he could have his perfect wife at home and his secret life on the side. But he forgot one crucial thing: you should never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. I lost a husband, yes, but I gained myself back, and that was worth every single second of the revenge.